Hey there, welcome to Rum and Code. My name is Matt, and today I want to talk to you about declarative routing inside of QwikCity. So what is declarative routing? Well, declarative routing is a tool created by Jack Harrington for Next.js and React Router, which allows you to have type-safe routes in your applications, and I adopted a config for this to work inside of QwikCity. So declarative routing creates a type-safe link component for each of your routes where you define a schema. So this ensures that you have the correct URL and that they are being passed the proper params. The combination of having named routes with a Zod schema helps ensure that you aren't shipping broken links to your users and allows you to have a single source of truth for your routes. Here's a very basic page with a few links navigating around an application. It's okay, there is a quick extension to help you autofill these hrefs for you. However, it might not catch if a route changes after the fact, or what the required params are for a route, etc. That's where declarative routing comes in, as you just have an actual named link component for each route where you pass the props directly, and then they're validated with Zod to ensure that they are correct. So let's take a look at the repo, see where you can find it, see how it works, and let's see it in a real application. So this is the repo. It's in the Pro Next.js GitHub under declarative routing. And there's two documents I'm going to show you. This is the QwikCity docs for the installation and usage on QwikCity. And then we're going to go ahead and go through the walkthrough as well. So it shows you how it works, a couple different ways on how to use it, why it's a good idea, etc. I'm going to go through a lot of this with you later, but I just want to show you that there's a little bit more information on the website as well. So we're going to go through this walkthrough, and what it's going to look like is this Pokedex. So this Pokedex was created by Jack Harrington in Next, and I just adopted it to be as close as possible with QwikCity code. So you can see that we have our Pokedex here. I can click on Bulbasaur. It opens Bulbasaur off to the side here, gives me some of its information, and I click over here. It actually brings me to a page dedicated directly to it. You can see that each route, does take their proper params. There's a search. The search, I can type in like bulb, and you can see that both Bulbasaur and Tadbulb return. So that's how this works. So the first set. All right. So the first step then in here is to obviously pull down the starter code, which I've already done. Before we go on to step 2, I want to just do a quick brief walkthrough of the codes. We have a couple links where we pass our hrefs. As I said earlier, that QwikCity does have an extension which will give you some decent helping, but once again, that won't yell at you though, like if a route changes or if you're not passing the proper params, etc. But if you want to see what that is, we have this QwikCity link right here by Ryan Desu. Hopefully I said that right, but it's a very helpful package. It's something that if you use Qwik and you aren't using declarative routing, I'd definitely look into. But back into our code. Like I said, we have a couple links. We also have a couple areas where using use location. Use location allows you to get the params, but we don't know what the params are at this point. They're just that there are params. So with declarative routing, both of those situations are going to be easier. So let's get into it. The next step then is obviously to install or initialize the package. So let's go back over here and open up Warp. I've got my code running on this side. I use ni, which is why it says nr. It's the same thing as running the pnpm run dev. So I'm going to initialize the declarative routing package. It's going to install it as well as the dependencies that it needs. It's going to ask you where your routes are with QwikCity. They should always be here. Where do you want to have your declarative routes? Some people like it in a components folder, but by default it's just going to be in /source/declarative routes. All right. So added 3.info files to my project, added declarative routing support, and added a README. So let's take a look at what it added. So if we look at our changes here, we can see that it actually added 2 new commands for us, the declarative run build and declarative run build watch, as well as it added Zod and query string. So Zod is going to be what we're going to use for validation, and query string is just how it worked kind of behind the scenes. So the next package or file to look at is this declarative routes index. So here are the routes that we have. We have our home, Pokemon/Pokemon ID, which we're going to rename just to make it a little easier on us, and our search route. Each route then also has a route info where we're going to add to some of these. We're going to add some params or some search params depending on which route we're looking at. We have our make route. This is how it's working behind the scenes. This is how it's building those routes for us. You really shouldn't need to adjust anything in here, but if you want to try and edit it, that's where you would do it. And then we have a couple hooks as well. We have our use params and our use search params, and I will show you those as well. So let's go back to the walkthrough here. And let's go ahead and rename that Pokemon route right away for us. So if we go in our Pokemon ID, let's do like Pokemon details. And when we rename a route, what you need to do then is run that build or build watch. Build watch will just always run in the background whenever you change stuff, but let's just do the build. So what's kind of cool then is it goes through our repo and sees what all changed, and it makes adjustments accordingly. So you can see that there is no more Pokemon ID route. It's now Pokemon details route. And we can verify that again by looking here, and sure enough. Now we're going to add some schemas to our route infos. So our search route takes 2 different search or query params. We have our Q, which is our query, and our limit. So I'm going to copy this, go into our search, and let's see, just go ahead and add those. You'll see that I'm using the coerce function to change because all query params are going to be a string by default, and I want this to be a number. And then for our Pokemon/Pokemon ID, you'll see that we're gonna have it so it can take in a number as well. So our Pokemon/Pokemon ID, it already knew it was a string, but we want it to be a number. So it found that by just looking at this, and says that, you know, this brackets notation means that it's expecting something, so by default it did a string. All right, so let's go ahead and start updating some of our links. So in our layout file here, we have our home link, which is our slash. So what we can do is just pull in our home.link and remove the href. Our search .link, remove the href. And now because we added those query params, what we can do is we can look and we enter our search, and we can see that it takes in a Q, so I could say like bulb, and now if I go back to my application, you can see if I just click search, it automatically typed in bulb, and then there's also that limit. So if I want to say limit 1, we can try that again, and there we go. Now it's only returning 1. But by default, we don't want it to have anything. So let's just go ahead and bring it back to normal. We can remove our old import, and now it's no longer yelling at us. All right. So let's go into our Pokemon grid.tsx. And we're going to update this guy with this code. We're going to make sure that we import it Come on. Oh, duh. We renamed this. Details.link. And now it should find it. Yes. And clear up our old route, and there we go. So this is actually where I said this in the walkthrough, so I kind of jumped the gun here. Let's go into our selectable grid. And we're going to replace, once again, it's going to yell at me because this is going to be wrong, but we're going to do the Pokemon details.link and pass it these params. Make sure that we have it actually import. And now we're going to update some hooks. So what I showed you earlier was that use location, which you can deconstruct or get out the params from it, but we don't really know what any of that is. So what's really cool with the declarative routing, though, is it's going to take in that same, essentially that same thing, that Pokemon details, and then we're going to be able to get the params out of it. So if I go and I open up this guy, we have our use location. We're going to replace those two lines with this, even though once again it's going to yell at me because there is no Pokemon ID. So let's do Pokemon details and use params. All right. So now we know that Pokemon ID is a number. And then we go into our route/search. Where was this? Oh, sorry. This guy. And we can simplify this once again. We're going to use the use search params. We're going to do the search. Clear out the missing things. Sorry about that. I had stopped recording because there was an error here, but apparently TypeScript just hadn't caught up. And as soon as I stopped recording, then it fixed itself. So I didn't change any other code since the break, but there we go. So now we've made all of our changes, and if we go back to our website and refresh everything, you can see that everything still works. We have our search. You can manually do stuff in, or we can do limit equals 25 instead of the default is 10. You can see that it pulls back more. So there we go. We now have declarative routing. All right. Another cool thing that you can do with declarative routing is you can access the route of anything just using the import as a function instead of a component. So let's take a look. So if I wanted to add, let's say, the URL under the name, in QwikCity, you can hold the Alt key and on Windows, or the Option key on Mac, and you can highlight, and when you click it will take you directly to that place in your code. So let's go ahead and let's go to the Pokemon card. Let's go ahead and use the Pokemon details. But this time we're going to use it as a link, as I stated earlier. The Pokemon details, as we know, takes in a Pokemon ID, which is the Pokemon.id. So if I go back, we can see that now we have all of these routes. If I look up, let's say, char, we can go down here and let's look at this Charjabug, which is 737. I can click on him, look at my URL, and sure enough, that's 737. So one of the other things that it can do is that watch command. So this is kind of a trick. You probably shouldn't be used all that much, but let's say you decided that, you know what, this is no longer Pokemon/Pokemon ID. You want this to be, something else. what we're going to see then in here is that all of these routes that we're referencing that has changed. And once again, now this says something else. So, okay, let's put that back. And there we go. It's already fixed. All right. So I'd already showed you before that we have this Pokemon details link, and it takes in this Pokemon ID, but I had alluded that there's other ways of doing this. So instead of this dot link, what we can do is do this dot params link, if I could type. And now you'll see that this is yelling at us because this no longer takes in Pokemon ID directly like that. Now it takes in params, and inside of there it takes Pokemon ID, and that's going to be a selected ID dot value. And then I also alluded there was also a third way of being able to use this. So if we want to take these and go back to the standard link component, so let's go ahead and do that. We can now pass this an href of our home as a function, and we can pass the search as a href search. So this is going to work the exact same once again. So we have that. And let's say you wanted to actually pass something to this. So this does not take any params. That's the first, it's the P, but it does take in a search. So I could pass in a query. Let's do char again. And then it also takes in a limit. Let's do 3. All right, refresh the page, make sure everything's live, and sure enough. So many different ways to use this awesome package. Hopefully it makes your jobs easier. I think it's going to make everything a lot nicer. So yeah, check it out. That's declarative routing or type safe routing inside of QwikCity.